So we are reading Hands of Light by Barbara Brennan. We are on chapter 18, page number 165 of the book and page number 182 of the PDF. Scanning a friend.
One person can be the observer. Yeah.
I have to start again.
Oh. Scanning a friend. Sit opposite a friend in a chair. One person can be the observer and the other open to being observed. Do a meditation to silence the mind. Gently allow yourself to focus on your friend. Keep your eyes closed. Remember what it felt like to travel through your own body. Now you can visually travel through your friend body. This will feel a bit different because you are scanning from outside the body this time.
So whenever we do this process, right, stilling the mind, going into a state of calm is very, very important, right? You need to get the small guy, the ego self out of the picture and allow the big guy to start observing whatever you're observing.
First, scan the body to find an area you are attracted to. You may use your hands at first, but do not touch your friend. Later, you will not need to use your hands. When you are drawn intuitively to an area on your friend, simply put more of your focus there.
Right. So one thing is very clear, right? When we do remote viewing also, she mentioned remote viewing in the book, in the last reading that we did. So Joe McMonaghan says that the easiest thing to remote view is a nuclear active thing. The reason for that is the entropy in that particular thing is the highest in the nuclear fusion material, right? Now, whenever there is an imbalance, the entropy in that area is the highest. So you will automatically get attracted to that space. So this is what exactly she's saying, that wherever there is that entropy or wherever there is an imbalance, you will be attracted to that particular place.
Allow yourself to focus on the organs of that area. Believe what you see. You may get a color, a texture, a sensation, or just a vague sense of something. Allow the pictures to come into your head.
Okay, so this is very much like when we use the one breath technique to look for answers for others, right? Now, we have to use all our senses, taste, smell, feelings, touch, everything. You need to activate all the senses. And the most important thing, you need to start believing what you are perceiving. If you allow the small guy to come in and you start judging what you're seeing, then you will not get accurate results, right? So getting the small guy out of the way is extremely important. You have to say it as you see it, as you perceive it with all the 5 physical senses.
When you feel satisfied with what you found, allow yourself to be drawn to another area of the body and repeat. If you are not drawn to another part of the body, just start scanning the body. You can scan the body by body area, or if you are familiar with anatomy, which you ought to learn if you want to be a healer. Scan the body systems. Note what you see in your mind.
Right. So becoming observant, right? When we are doing these things, observation, perception is the key to the entire game.
When you are satisfied with your exploration, slowly come back into yourself and open your eyes. Discuss what you were able to pick up with your friend. How does what you picked up correlate with what she knows about herself? What doesn't correlate? Can you explain why? Perhaps the answer is in your assumptions. Perhaps the problem is in your own body. Perhaps you are right and your friend doesn't know about the situation you saw. Now switch roles and let your friend observe you. Let yourself be passive to make it easier for her.
So now it's again very important, right? Whatever we perceive, many times we will be attracted to what we are also resonating with. That's why being in stillness consciousness, right? Being in a state of no thought becomes very important, because you need to disconnect yourself, your perceptions, your preconceived notions have to get out of the picture. Many times healers bring their issues into the healing, which is the worst thing that you can do, right? And this is one of the reasons why people who know each other very well can't work together, because they will, one person will say, you're telling this person to do this, but you are also doing it. But when a healer is making an observation or doing a rectification or doing a healing, then that person's personality is not involved. It is another personality which is looking at things and giving the perception of what is being seen and said, right? Also, many times the person does not know that they have an issue, and which later comes out. This happens a lot with me. I'll tell a person something and then they'll say, no, this is not with me. And after a few months or maybe a year, it turns out that yes, that person had that thing, right? So you have to be very gentle with yourself as well as with the person in front of you. Okay. Now over here, again, we come back to the fact that you have to have trust, you have to have faith in your own perception. You have to have clarity that your perception is precise. We are observing it from that state of consciousness, right? Now, if I am observing something from this state of consciousness and someone else is observing it from here, the two observations are going to be totally different, right? So everyone has their own way of perceiving things, but we have to trust our way of perception, what we are perceiving, and then build a repertoire that, okay, if this happens to you, then it means this. If this happens to you, you mean this. If you perceive this in this way, this is what it means. The more you do it, the better you will become at doing it. Yes, Indra Bhabhi?
I have a question, Niket.
Yeah.
I've come across a lot of people who call themselves healers, but when I know them personally, they are going through tremendous issues themselves, which they're not able to cope with. Yet they are doing healing. They claim to do healing for others.
Yeah.
Now,
so see,
my question is, when you're in such a mess yourself, how are you able to help somebody else?
Correct. So now, if they are able to disconnect from their problems and then do the healing, it's perfectly all right. But if they are stuck in their problems and they're carrying their problems into the healing process, it's a big problem. Let me tell you. You're muted.
Exactly. So sometimes it's
so
confusing.
now, see, that is why you need to be very clear about who you are letting into your system. Because if that person doesn't have clarity of thought and clarity of mind, they will transmute their issues into you. Okay, because that will start resonating in you. So if there is even a semblance of resonance of what the healer is going through in you, and the healer is actually going through a bigger issue, that issue will get transferred to you. So you have to be very careful when you're looking at healers. See, this is also where the conscious awareness of the healer comes in, right? If the healer is not in a position to do a healing, but is yet doing the healing, the healer has to have a lot of resilience to do the healing. If that resilience, that inner harmony is not there, and the healer is doing the healing, then they're doing a disservice to themselves as well as their patient and client. So you have to be very careful with this.
Bhaiya, can I ask you something?
Recently,
One second, Indra Bhabhi is asking something. Go ahead.
I've come across two pranic healers at a cafe recently, they're all the time sitting in the cafe and doing their whatever other movements.
Yeah.
Now with so many people in the cafe, so many people having their meals there, and they may be doing cleansing for some client who has approached them. So is it pertinent to sit in a public area like that and to do the cleansing process long distance?
See, I'll tell you now, there are two aspects to this. Again, it depends on the quality and the consciousness that the healer is operating from, right? Now, the issue with pranic healing is that you're pulling out stuff from the person's field, right? And then you're putting it into a salt bowl. That's what they normally do. Or they are putting it into blue fire or whatever, right? Now, if the pranic, that healer is not proficient enough to actually mutate or to actually transform that thing that they're pulling out of the other person, then that cafe after some time may get contaminated.
That's what I wanted to know.
You get what I'm saying? Now, this was the issue that I faced with pranic healing. Again, I'm repeating, pranic healing was started in Calcutta. It was the second city where it started, and it was started by me. All the programs in the beginning were organized by us, right? But I found pranic healing works to a certain extent, and then it stops working. So if the healer is not raising their level of consciousness when they're doing something and they're just going through the mechanics, then it's a very different ballgame. Now, when you look at shamanism, the same thing happens with shamanism. The shaman is going into an altered state. He's calling in the helping spirits. And then the healing is done and its extraction, etc. is done. But the helping spirit actually throws whatever is there into moving water. Right. So again, you're living in a quantum universe. So the moving water may be 100 kilometers away from you, but the intent is that issue is getting taken and put into the moving water. So the moving water will transform that energy. You get that? But now I don't know whether these pranic healers are having bowls of salt in front of them and they're putting it in the cafe. They're not doing all that. So I don't know what they're doing. But yeah, I would not. I mean, as a regular practice, okay, I can sit in a cafe and do something in a case of emergency, but I'd rather not do it in a public place, to be frank with you. Yeah, I would not do it personally. Yes, I have done in emergencies. I've been sitting in an airport and I've done a biofield tuning for a person, but that was an emergency case. I would not sit in a public place and do these things, personally speaking. It's not. Because see, people don't understand what you're doing, right? And then their thoughts will start influencing what you're up to. Plus, everyone is eating over there. So the food of the other person can get contaminated. That's not a good thing to have, according to me. Yes, Renuji?
Bhaiya, see, issues everybody will have.
Correct.
But the thing is, I was just thinking that we all have issues, but we do send the reball to everybody.
Okay, so how are you sending the reball? What is the concept of the reball? Are you sending it from C1 consciousness?
No.
What are you doing? You're shifting your state of consciousness to F10, and then you're setting an intent in F10 and sending it. Do your problems exist in F10?
No.
So then?
Oh, so you mean to say, but Bhaiya, the healers who would be doing it even professionally, I mean, there are people, but the reason maybe they are effective is because they are able to go to the F10.
That is what I said, that if they are going into an altered state of consciousness, where they are leaving their issues and problems behind, going into a state of oneness and then doing the healing, there's no issue. But if they're doing the healing from C1 consciousness, along with all the issues and problems, then it becomes a problem.
So that means we can't cause a problem. Because,
not at all.
I mean, we all
have you ever seen anyone? We've been running the healing group since, I think, 2012.
Yeah. No, but not because I thought that.
No,
just because discussion.
Has anyone told you that something adverse has happened?
No, nobody has. So that's why I wanted this clarification. Because
so I'll tell you why I got off pranic healing. Because actually a person died. The healer died. Okay, forget the patient.
Yeah. No, even I went off pranic healing because I felt it was you had to be, it was difficult to
Yeah.
keep.
But again,
Not
it's a
that
good
good.
process. If
Yeah.
it is done properly, it is a good
Mhm.
process. I have no qualms about the process. But most people forget to cleanse themselves. They forget to go into an altered state. I mean, they don't do it in the way that it should be done. That's
Should
all.
be.
Nothing more than that.
One tends to begin to take shortcuts,
Correct.
and that's not possible in that.
Correct.
That I also, okay.
That's the only.
Thank you. Bhaiya.
Indra
Thank
Bhabi,
you.
you want to say something else? Okay.
3. Meditation to open your third eye scanner. An exercise suggested by one of my teachers, the Reverend CB, is to lie on your back or sit with your back straight. Make sure you are comfortable. Take a deep breath through your nose. First, fill your lower abdomen with air, then your middle chest, and then your upper chest. Now open your mouth as wide as you can. Hold the back of your tongue towards the back of your throat and hold your throat in such a way as to allow the air to escape only if it rasps against the upper back of your throat near the soft palate.
So this is like, when people, you'll find that tantrics, okay, now tantrics have been demeaned unnecessarily according to me. We read the left hand of God. So there's a lot of good that can be done by those practices, right? Now in the tantric process, there is a process called turiya, right? Where you go into an altered state. And in that state, the tongue goes back. And many times tantrics also, there is a skin which is there under the tongue, which keeps the tongue in place. They actually cut that skin over there, that piece of with connecting to the bottom of your mouth, of your lower mouth, the tongue, so that the tongue can go up. And when it goes up, it makes that connection. And they say that Amrit starts to fall. So this is exactly what she's saying, that put your tongue at the back of your throat, and then do that breathing exercise, which activates the pineal gland. Okay. So in the last session, we got to know that the light comes into the brain through the eyes and through the pineal gland over here, the pituitary gland, sorry, right, or the third eye, and then it goes into the brain and activates the pineal gland and the pituitary gland through that, right? So over here, what are you doing? You're putting the tongue there, and the pineal and pituitary are right above that. So because of the sound vibration that you're making, and it is touching the top part of your palate, it will activate those two glands, which allow your extra ordinary senses to start to percolate. So the clair senses start to get activated. Of course, by going into the higher focus levels, we are achieving the same thing at the end of the day. Yes, Sagri?
Is this like Ujjayi Pranayama, or is that different?
Ujjayi Pranayama is, see again, over there you're not putting your tongue at the back. Pranayama will automatically influence the breath, right? The breath is connected with your mind. It is connected with your emotions. So pranayama will work at a certain level. But here, this is a precise technique where you're putting your tongue at the back of the throat. Even in pranic healing, they'll tell you to put, I don't know nowadays if they do it or not, but when we had done it, they used to tell us to keep the tongue at the back of the throat. Okay, I mean, to touch the top of the palate, because that connection gets made, because that's the only gap in the whole body.
Because Ujjayi uses this breathing, that
rasping. Yeah, but the tongue is not there.
The tongue is not there. I get.
Yeah.
But yeah, the tongue is there because we do take the tongue back.
In Ujjayi?
You
okay.
Turn the tongue.
Okay, so
back.
then it's the same principle. Okay.
Try to get it to rasp as far back as you can. The rasping sound should be fine, not gurgly. Do not throw your head back. Keep it directly on top of your spine. Slowly allow the air to escape from your body. First the air in the lower abdomen, then in the middle chest, and then in the upper chest.
So what you're doing here is diaphragmic breathing, right? Diaphragmic breathing is very important to still the mind. It is very important to allow fresh oxygenation to take place in the body system. And see, we also have to understand that the brain consumes the maximum amount of oxygen in the body. It consumes a maximum amount of energy in the body, right? So when you do diaphragmic breathing, you're automatically activating the brain because more oxygen is available in the body system for the whole body system and especially the brain.
Let all the air out. Take a breath and relax. Repeat the rasping breath. When you get the hang of it, add the following visualization. As the breath leaves your body, visualize a golden stream of light start in the rear pelvic area and run up your spine into the central brain area. Repeat 3 times with 3 rasping breaths. Now focus on the breath of your body. The stream of light looks pink on the front of the body. Repeat 3 times with 3 rasping breaths. Notice that the 2 streams of light arc over and into the center of the brain. Once you have learned this exercise, do not do this more than 3 to 4 breaths for each side of your body, or you may get very dizzy. Please treat this last exercise with a great deal of respect since it is very powerful. Take everything at a slow pace. You cannot speed up your evolution in a non-organic way. It never works, although most of us wish it would.
So basically taking one step at a time. Overdoing anything is not worth it, right? Take it easy. Keep raising the bar slowly. That's what the game is over.
Many times during a healing, I do quick breathing exercises that help me raise my vibrations and energy so that I can see into the aura better, see higher levels of the aura, and also transmit higher frequencies through my field. To do this, I rasp the air against the upper back part of my throat, but I do it by taking very short, fast breaths through my nose. Because I have practiced the above exercises so many times, this is now easy for me to do. I also sometimes take long, steady, even in-out breaths without pause and rasp air on the back of my throat to center my focus, clear my mind, and balance my energy field. I call this breathing technique the nasal rasp breath.
So again, there are 2 methods, right? Quick, fast breaths, which is hyperventilation, right? When you talk about breath work, when you talk about rebirthing, that's the process that you use. Quick breath, right? When you look at the heart math process, it's slowing down the breath, right? So there are 2 ends of the spectrum. You can achieve the end by both sides, right? So you can go into hyperventilation. You can really slow down your breathing and make it very still. That will also still your mind and take you into a higher state of consciousness.
When high sense vision is coupled with high sense hearing, information received becomes even more useful.
So again, every organ, every part of our body is vibrating and it is making a sound. In fact, there was an experiment done where they amplified the sounds being made by the body, and they found that even children, right? They actually observed children, and they found that any sound made when a child is there, a specific part of their body used to vibrate according to the sound. So when we get into these higher states of perception, all the clair senses can get activated. So you can hear things, you can smell things, you can taste things. You'll get taste in your mouth, right? Okay, if this is working. You look at a particular part, you may get a taste that, okay, there's a problem here. So each taste will tell you that something is right or something is wrong. Every sound that is there, you'll actually hear it. You can smell the stuff also. And it's very powerful. Today, dogs, they can actually smell if a person is unwell. Why? Because every kind of imbalance in the body releases a smell, right? So the more sensory perception you bring into it, the more perceptive you become. Yes, Indra Bhabhi?
Going by what you're saying, I wanted to share with everyone a recent situation. My husband just went through a surgery and he was not supposed to sleep on the left side because his pacemaker was there. I was very concerned. So every night before I went to sleep, I used to raise my consciousness and tell myself that if he shifts to the left, please wake me up. And it's so amazing that every time it has happened, I wake up nearly 5 times, 6 times in the night, and I see him lying on the left and I wake him up and I shift him to the other side.
Correct.
So it's just that one command and that state works so magically.
Yeah. You go into an altered state and give a command, right? And you'll find that it works.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Finding the cause of the illness. Rolling backwards in time. I have discovered a way to read the cause of a particular physical problem. It combines two techniques. The first is the normal way we evoke memory. Simply remember back to when you were younger. Now pick a certain age or a certain place you have lived in and remember it. Now remember an even earlier time. What is your internal process to evoke memory? What does it feel like? When I remember something of my past, I use my mind in a particular way. I know what it feels like. I hold memories in either feelings, pictures, or sounds. It is easy to roll backwards in time. We all do it. Most of us believe we can only do it for ourselves and not for others. That is just a limited belief. I have discovered that it is this internal process of rolling backwards in time that is used to read the past history of an illness.
So this is absolutely possible. We do this all the time when we are doing timeline for a person, when we are doing biofield tuning. And when we are doing a line, we can actually connect to a relationship. We can connect to anything, right? So why not an illness? That when did the illness start? What is your relationship with the illness? We can figure it out. And one thing that I have learned, and this is something that we do in the personal development program also, where we use the encodings that we've been encoded with to release a habit, right? But to release the habit, you have to go to the origin. Where did the habit start? And then release it from there. Once you release it from there, then the habit doesn't have any control over you anymore. And I can see that it really works. There's a command called no more, no more. And it's really working fabulously. I was not previously using it. I've recently started using it. And anything that I don't want to come into my awareness, I don't want it to come and, operate through me. The moment I use that command, it actually stops happening. And I've seen it happening. So this is the same thing that she's talking over here, that you roll back and you see where the event started and you rehash it over there. When you rehash the event at the origin, the whole thing starts to shift and healing can start taking place. But we need to go to the origin. Where did it actually start?
Yeah.
Yes.
So when you say go to the origin, like, so I wanted to work with, diabetes. So isko fir how?
So now you go into your own timeline.
Okay.
Okay. Now there are two ways of doing it. You can go backwards. Like let's say you're 44 years old, then you're going to 43, you're going to 42 and feel what the diabetes feels like.
Okay.
right? And then you go backwards. Or you start from when you are 0 and you come forwards and you feel where it actually started.
Okay.
So connect with the frequency, connect with the feel of diabetes, and then ask that question and go one. You've done biofield tuning, so you know how we do it,
Right.
right? So in the same process, you go
Okay.
year by year,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can go month by month
Okay.
to figure out, okay, it started over here,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, what happened with led to its start? It may have been stress, it may have been overeating, it may have been an accident, it may have been a traumatic situation that you went through, right? Which resulted in that particular illness coming into your system. So
Yeah.
now look at it from an adult perspective of what happened at that time and rehash it.
Rehash it using no more, no more.
You could use no more, no more. You could go and, like, for example, a child is told not to have a sweet. Okay. Now that the child really wanted to have that sweet and it became a traumatic event for the child.
Okay.
Right. For that time, for the child, it was a huge thing. But if you look at it from your adult version, is it a huge thing?
No.
So when you go back in time to that particular event, which has caused, let's say that because you were told not to have that sweet, the diabetes has resulted.
Okay.
Your attraction to the sweet. Now, as an adult, when you go back and rehash it, that it was really not important.
Yeah.
And you understand it from that angle, then the effect of that sweet, you not getting the sweet at that point in time, will diminish. And since it was the cause of the trauma, will diminish, right? And it was the cause of your diabetes, it could help in handling your diabetes in a better way. I don't know and can't say that it will get cured. Emotional stuff definitely gets cured. There is no doubt in my mind. Physical stuff may take more time, right? But the fact is that it originated from somewhere. If we can handle it there, it can get taken care of.
Okay. Also, thank you.
Yes, Renuji.
Bhaiya, that means it isn't that when it started, supposing diabetes, like we all know when we started becoming diabetic.
How do you know? You know only when you tested for it, right?
Yeah.
But did it start when you tested or it started before?
So no, supposing somebody has started in the age of 50, which we know when we've tested it. So, but can it be that it actually started
when you were 20? Childhood? Yeah, maybe. You tested for it and you got to know about it, right?
Right.
But so many people get so many diseases. They don't even know that they've got it. So when you became aware of it is very different from when it started.
So it could be a long gap, or would
Correct,
it be just
absolutely.
that
It could
6
be a
months or
huge gap.
something?
Absolutely. It could be a huge gap.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
The second technique is to use kinesthetic connection and internal vision. First, I connect with the particular body part in question using my kinesthetic sense. Then I get a picture of the problem area to describe its present condition. I hold the connection and then roll backwards in time, reading the past and witnessing the history of the body part. As I keep witnessing back into the past, I finally read the cause of the problem. For example, I will see a trauma occur to a body part at an earlier time in the patient's life. Then I will see another at an even earlier time, and so on. Most serious illnesses result from a long series of such traumas. I simply keep going backwards until a time before any trauma occurred to that part of the body. The first trauma that occurred is the initiating cause of the present problem.
So this is exactly what we talked about, right? You keep going backwards and figure out where the trauma actually started happening and rehash it at the point of inception. And that really creates a clearing of the entire field.
Bhaiya, can I ask you a question, please?
Yeah, please.
What if it is from birth?
Yeah, so
For
then
a
you'll have to
child.
clear it in the womb.
Could the mother be the cause of it, or could it be the
Yeah,
child?
so if the mother has gone through trauma when the baby was in the womb of the mother, that can reflect in the mother.
Okay.
So, and we have seen this happen many times, that the mother has gone through a very traumatic situation and the child is also connected with the mother. That's why in olden times, they used to say that anyone who's pregnant should read good things, should not take any stress, eat good things, be in good company. This was the basic reason, because the child learns in the womb also.
But a child could carry it also from the last
You
birth.
could, so you can go backwards in time also. It could come from behind also, but for now we are looking at it from the conception side.
Okay, right. Thank you. Thank you, Bhi.
Yeah.
Chapter 19, High Auditory Perception and Communication with Spiritual Teachers. The information I received auditorily was at first general, and then with practice it became specific. For example, I would hear words of love and assurance for the individual who had come for a healing. Later, this information would get as specific as naming people, diseases a patient had, or in some cases, a diet, vitamins, remedies, or drugs that would benefit the patient. Many people who chose to follow these verbal instructions became well.
So now what is happening? The healer is going into an altered state of consciousness and is getting downloads which would work to the benefit of the patient. Now, of course, it's up to the patient to listen and act on it or not act on it. And many times when these downloads come, it actually works for the particular patient. Okay, I've shared this story with you all before. I mean, many times it happens. You'll get a download. This person should eat coriander, or this is a diet that person should follow, or this is the way that this person should sleep. The person is not sleeping well, or there is something in the room which is creating a problem, for example. Right. Now, there's this very stark story which happened. I think I've mentioned it before, but I don't know if all of you heard it or not. So this young girl, she used to come for a physical book reading in Alipur when we used to have it over there. And one day she came up with that, any new dress that I wear, it tears. So I told her, bring the dress. We checked the dress, and yes, there was a depleting energy field around the dress. So then we told her, I went into a state and I asked what will work. And I was told that she should wear a pouch with, if I'm not mistaken, moom, this thing. I don't know if it was heen, and one more thing, and wear it around her neck, right? Now, after she started wearing that, the tearing of her dresses stopped. And the beautiful part is that we did a lot of testing in one of the solar eclipses. We were together for about 8 hours or something like that, and we were constantly testing. What we found was that in the solar eclipse, everyone's axis gets affected. The way that we test with the antenna, everyone's axis goes totally ulta when the solar eclipse starts. But while she was wearing that pouch, her axis was in alignment, right? So now these downloads that you get can become very, very powerful, and we should be open to acting on them. That is the real trick. And the more you act on them, the more your confidence on them starts to grow.
Her axis was aligned even though it was a solar eclipse when
Correct.
she had the pouch.
Correct.
The best way I know to enhance high auditory perception is to sit for guidance. Take pencil and paper, sit in a comfortable meditative position, center yourself and lift your consciousness.
So again, she is giving this process, right? But you can develop your own technique of doing it. For example, when I go and someone asks me a question, I go into these altered states, and this is a state that I used to go on in the guidelines program. You get it absolutely precisely. They call it the ish frequency, the inner self helper. And the kind of information that you can download is really fantastic. I can't, I mean, I've told things to people from off the cuff, somewhere just going, and it actually manifests because the download is actually happening. So you need to develop your own technique. What she's saying in the beginning, yes, you need to quieten the mind. You need to go into that state of consciousness where unnecessary thoughts are not there. That is when you connect with the higher self.
Formulate a question in your mind as clearly as you can. Focus now on wanting to know the truth about the question, no matter what the answer is. Then write the question on the paper. Set the pen and paper down within reaching distance. Focus and silence the mind. Wait for an answer to come to you. After some time in silence, you will begin to receive an answer. That answer will come up in the form of pictures, feelings, general concepts, words, or even smells.
Okay, so now this is something that we practice. People who've done the excursion workshop, when we are doing the one breath technique, right? This is the exact way that you literally do it. Whatever comes in your mind, you're just saying it out to the other person. Over here, what she's saying is write it down because you're doing it yourself. So you can actually use the one breath technique. When you use that one breath technique, you're going into that altered state of focus 12 and then downloading the answer. But again, in the workshop, we talk about 4 aspects, right? We talk about clarity. We talk about not holding on to your question. We talk about letting your question go into that expanse and then be open to receiving the answer, right? You need to have a desire to know the answer. You need to want to know the answer, right? And then allow the answer to drop into your state of consciousness. But formulating the question with clarity is very important, because if you ask the wrong question, you will never get the right answer.
Write down the answer no matter what it is. You may think it is irrelevant, but keep writing. The form through which the information comes will vary. Stay with it and write. The writing will eventually begin to orient the incoming information to sounds. Focus on hearing directly the words that are coming to you. Practice, practice, practice. Write everything that comes to you. Do not leave anything out. After you are finished writing, put the paper aside for at least 4 hours. Later, go back and read what you have written. You will find it of interest. Keep a notebook for this purpose.
Okay, so you have to keep at it, right? Over a period of time, you'll get a sense, right, that this is right and this is wrong, or this is relevant. I need to focus on this part of the information that I've got. So it's a learned process. The more you practice, the better you will get at it.
After I did this every morning at sunrise for 3 months, the verbal information came so quickly that I couldn't write fast enough. The voice suggested that I buy a typewriter. Soon I couldn't type fast enough. The voice suggested that I buy a tape recorder. I did. At first, it was hard to go from writing to speaking the words out loud. The sound of my voice interfered with the quiet I, by that time, was able to hold in my mind. With practice, I became clear.
So now this again, right? In the guidelines program, in the old days, people used to be given a tape recorder, actual cassette player, and you used to take that tape with you into the check unit. And whenever you had an intuitive insight, you were told to start the recording and then record whatever you were saying. So you're going into an altered state and then recording, going into an altered state and then recording. It's a learned process. You got to learn it. There is another process in shamanism where there are two shamans, and one shaman is going into an altered state, and the patient is right in front of them. The shaman going into an altered state is constantly narrating whatever he is experiencing or she is experiencing to the other shaman, and the other shaman is making a note of everything that is being said by the shaman. So this is very similar to that process, the shamanic process of going into an altered state and speaking about your journey to the other person. It's a very powerful way of actually creating a healing for the patient also.
The next step was to do it for another person and then in front of a group. This was especially embarrassing because the way verbal channeling works is that the channeler can only hear the first few words of what is going to be said. It takes a lot of faith to jump into the beginning of a sentence and allow the unknown rest of it to flow out.
Yeah, so many times a channeler, when they are in that altered state, they really don't know what they are speaking. So when they come back, they don't realize. This is happening with most of these people. With Edgar Casey also, he never used to know what he said, right? The entities used to come through him and speak, and he never knew what he actually said. So this can also start happening to you, but just be with it. That's not an issue.
The experience of accessing information verbally inevitably leads to the question, who is talking? I certainly hear a voice. Is it one I make up, or does it have another source? Best place to find out. Ask the voice. I did. It said, my name is Heon, your spiritual guide.
Right. So when Robert Monroe started doing investigations, right, he actually had a group of people called the explorers who used to put into the check unit, and then they are going into these altered states. And a lot of guides and masters started to come and speak through the voice box of the person who was in the check unit, right? So again, there are recordings for this, umpteen number of recordings. In fact, in one of, we actually play one of the recordings in the Gateway Voyage. The Gateway Voyage is coming up from the 3rd. So anyone who wants to join can still join that program. You actually hear the live recording of a session taking place where the voice of the person speaking actually changes, and you start hearing stuff which is very relevant coming out from the person concerned.
What does Heon mean? The wind whispering truth through the centuries, where does it come from? Kenya. It is true that I had seen visions of spirits and angels before, but I had to categorize them as visions. Now they were talking to me. Soon I could feel their touch, and sometimes when I saw them in the room, I could smell a wonderful fragrance.
So again, this happens, right? Many times people will feel a brush as if something has brushed them, right? Some people hear a sound when that entity is beside them. Some people smell a fragrance that, yes, this entity has come into the room. So every entity has a signature pattern. But again, which is the sense with which you connect with that entity or that energy field which is coming into your field becomes important. Again, practice becomes important away.
Just a metaphor or reality? All of my personal reality comes to me through my senses. And now that they are expanded, a greater, broader reality exists for me. Others with expanded sense perceptions experience it too. To me, it is real. You can only decide from your experience.
Right. So now I'm hearing a sound, but you're not hearing the sound. Right. Now, which is real? Which is right? You can only understand this by experience. When you start actually perceiving it for yourself and develop your own language of communication when we are going into these altered states. This is something that we keep repeating, right? We have to develop a language for ourselves.
Receiving information from a guide is different in that you enter into the metaphor that you are asking for information from a person who is wiser and more advanced than you are. The information that comes through is beyond your understanding. But if you allow it to continue to come through, you will eventually understand it.
So, so Robert Monroe talked about something called a ROTE, resonant energy in resonant organized thought energy. Right. He called it a ROTE, where information came into you and it was too much for the brain to handle, so it unraveled over a period of time. So over here, what she's saying is exactly that you may download information which you can't understand because your level of organization of thought processes and your level of consciousness is not ready to accept that and not ready in a position to understand it. But over a period of time, when it starts to unravel, you can actually start to understand it. Yes, Agri?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
Now, if two people are in the room and
Yeah.
then he comes into the room,
Hmm.
then each of these people can perceive this entity in a different way?
Absolutely, 101%. Someone may perceive it, someone may not perceive it. Both people may perceive it. It depends on the sensory perception level of the people who you are talking about. So
Okay.
like when we used to do physical programs, right? 10 people used to be in the same room. But some people smelt a fragrance and the other people didn't smell it. So there may be 2 or 3 people who smelt it and the rest 7 people did not smell it.
Is it possible for people to have different smells?
Absolutely. Again,
Okay.
it depends on your perception. What are you perceiving?
Oh.
Someone may smell rose, another person may smell jasmine. Now, who's to decide that what you smelled and what you didn't smell?
Okay.
Yes, Indra Bhabi?
I have a question. Supposing you're in a dilemma situation, could be a physical situation, could be a mental, whatever. And despite of all your knowingness, you're not able to process what you're going through. Okay, you're not able to deal with it. So at that time, if you plug into an energy, I'm not talking about the gods, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a human, could be a mentor, could be a friend, could be, is it possible that that person's energy takes you forward?
Absolutely, why not? That's why you need to associate with people who are operating at a higher level of consciousness than you. Now, if you are operating here and that other person is operating here, the moment you make that connection with that person, that's what gurus used to do, right? They were operating at a higher state of consciousness than you. So when you connected with their energy, it transported you to their level. You get that? Now, many times what happens? Now you've reached the level of this guru. So now you need to go to another guru who's operating at even a higher state of consciousness. So that is when the guru, if the guru is a true guru, will always point you that, okay, now you've learned enough from me. You've learned more or less everything that I could teach you. Now you need to go to the next guru. And they would direct you to the next guru. If any guru wants to hang on to you, then big problem. Please get your filters up. Okay. I mean, that's where I come from, at least. We can't hear you.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
We are going back to the
You have to come closer to your mic, Bhabhi. You're not clear at all.
I said, again, going back to my current situation where there was a medical situation, uh, we were taking it a little easy because of certain situations at home. That the surgery is very urgent, but we will push it, and then Rajan believes in someone, he believes in a person. He spoke to him and the person gave him a date. On this date, you must do it. So we said, how is it possible? Because there's a lot of dentistry which is on, and gut thinners were on. The pacemaker model was not available. And he told us one line that I'll make it happen. You just plan. It was just 4 days before the surgery. And we were planning it 10 days later. So he said, "Aap plan kariye, rest you leave to me, it'll happen."
Great. So it's
and it was
possible.
unbelievable that how the dentistry finished, blood thinners went off, everything, and it actually happened. So we realized that he made it happen for us.
Yeah, but
We surrendered totally. We surrendered totally. Okay, fine, aap kariye jo karna hai. And it really happened. So that
I'd like to meet this gentleman or this lady.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I mean, very fine. He's a bit on the tantric, a positive tantric.
Okay, that's no issue. What's the problem?
Yeah. But then
No
he really made it happen. So
yeah, so we can absolutely, it's possible.
I'll get to connect you to him.
Yeah, please. Yes, Renuji.
Bhaiya, I wanted to know, in our daily life sometimes when you're feeling down, you sometimes you just want to talk to certain people. It's not that you can anybody. You feel the person doesn't feel like meeting. So that means there's something within you which is telling you that okay.
See, now there are two aspects to this. There are two aspects to this. One is you are comfortable with someone. And the other is that that person actually is in a level who can actually advise you from a higher state of consciousness. Now, your discernment over there becomes very important because the person you are comfortable with may not be at a higher state of consciousness and may misguide you. Right. So that is where your awareness starts to come into the picture. No?
Okay.
So you have to be aware of how and why you're communicating with the person. Okay.
Right.
Channeling a guide can give information beyond the linear mind and can touch people very deeply. It reaches the soul beyond the human limitations. Usually in the beginning of a reading, my guide Hale will speak. That means I am doing a passive direct access. Then at a certain point, Hale will suggest that the patient asks questions to make things clearer. I feel that this is the best sequence because guides usually know more about where the problems really lie than we do. They go right under an individual's defense and into the heart of the matter. Therefore, when Huon starts a reading, we don't waste time getting to the deeper information that is waiting to assist us.
So what does this mean? You're going into an altered state and you're asking the questions of that energy field or that entity. It could be just going into an altered state of consciousness and throwing out the question and getting back the answer. It could be that you have an entity who you actually speak to. The person can actually come in front of you and you're standing and you're actually communicating with that person. Again, you have to develop your own technique. You have to develop your own feeling. You have to develop the way that you do it. You have to develop your own process of actually doing this stuff. And the Monroe process really assists in getting into these states where you can get answers for yourself.
I also ask Huon questions during readings. I can ask for a picture of the situation or any specific part of the body, or I can ask to have a certain problem described. I even ask questions like, is this cancer? Usually I get pretty specific answers, but it is not always easy, especially if I am uneasy about what the answer might be. It is then that I will block the information coming through. Then I must recenter to go on. Now it is time for you to try it.
So what does this imply, right? If you're not willing to listen to the answer, don't ask the question. Very simple. This is something that we tell people in the excursion also, and in the gateway voyage also, and in the guidelines program also. The point here is that you need to be in equanimity. You need to be centered. You need to be in a state of mind to, yes, just get that information which is there and then hang on to it, right? But the trick over here, again and again, I'm repeating, is that the more you act on the information coming, the more powerfully it starts to come back to you. Okay, so we can stop here today.